Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to another Swisspreneur Briefing with our amazing and outstanding residents joining us here today. Sophie, Laurent, great to have you again. Welcome back. How are you guys?
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Hot. I'm in Zurich for a
Oh,
change.
nice. Very
Yes.
good. Very good. But yeah, probably difficult timing right now. Everyone is complaining about the heat.
Yeah, is somebody listening to a podcast live right now? I wonder.
Well,
Maybe
maybe from the lake or the river or
maybe from the
something. Who
lake,
knows?
yeah, with AirPods.
Well, despite the hot temperatures, we actually do have a lot of stuff to go through. Since we last spoke about, I think it was like 5, 6 weeks ago, there has been quite some developments again. So we have, on one hand, we have new data on the funding this year. So seed money is drying up while big rounds keep going and keep closing. The second topic is something recurring in our themes. Are we just building companies to sell them too early to the US machine? And the third one is, do tighter data rules make Switzerland trusted or just slower, or maybe also Europe in general? So we have plenty of stuff to cover today, and I'm going to jump right in with sort of the prediction that you guys made last month. So we left in May and we put two scenarios on the table. The momentum keeps going, or the money piles into a handful of winners. Sophie, let's start with you. Which did we get, momentum or even more concentrated market than we already had last month?
I mean, Anthropic raised $600 billion before going on an IPO. I think it's more than the entire European VC market, right, at the time. So I would say a slight concentration. Yeah. I don't know what you guys think, but yeah, I think it's getting just more extreme right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Laurent, did June so far change your view or just confirm the established race newcomer stall split that we saw last month?
Yeah, I think nothing changed
Uh,
necessarily in the last 4 to 5 weeks in that sense. It's more of the same.
Mhm.
Good stuff, but more of the same.
And Sophie, you mentioned Anthropic. Despite the gigantic fundraise that they did, something else pretty significant happened. There has been a US export control directive that basically forced Anthropic to kill Fable 5 and Mythos 5 worldwide. I think also like outside of US citizens' hands, etc. So it's a pretty severe consequence. And former guest of the podcast, Marcel Salate, sort of the AI Pope of Switzerland, I will call him,
Mhm.
from EPFL, from the AI Center there, he calls it a red alert wake up for Europe. So, from your perspective as an investor, do you now also sort of do due diligence when you look at new investments to check for model access and where the company and the founders are located, because that can sort of make it or break it in an AR world?
Yeah, I mean it's a huge deal, right? It's really, and I mean it's not, it shouldn't be kind of a big surprise to anyone, honestly, because these things happened before, right? If you think about biotech, if you think certain materials, if you think like weapon restrictions, lies, countries do that, right? They
Yeah.
control access to things that are powerful, and so now large language models are in that bucket, right? And so yeah, I mean yeah, I mean, what, how did you call it, wake up call? Yes, I hope so. I mean, it's like, okay, if we don't have access to this, like, we're cut off, right? So if we can't build on the best language model, the best technology available, then we are not going to build the best products that are related to this. So it's I mean it's a huge, I don't know. It should be even more than a wake up call, right? Like Europe and Switzerland, we need to make sure that we remain relevant, that we build technologies that are relevant in the entire stack that we can control, so we can play along and participate, right? And it's not like funneled through, yeah, a single company or a single country. I mean, there was this report. I don't know if you saw that. That I really liked it. 2031 forecast written by Judith Dada and a few people that are advising the European Union on AI, and it's this kind
Oh
of
yeah.
science fiction story about what happens if Europe gets cut off of AI. And it's pretty severe and traumatic. So let's not do that. And so let's make sure that we build in-house or in continent technologies that are as relevant. So nobody can just cut us off, right? And so that's in general on the big ecosystem. And then for us as investors, every dependency is bad, right? Whenever you invest, you don't want this investment to be dependent on too many things, especially not on one thing, right?
Right.
And especially not if this can be cut off. So in general, no, very bad news for Europe, honestly. Yeah.
And I feel there are sort of two angles to that, right? There's one sort of who owns and builds and sort of controls the models in the end. But then there's also sort of the operational angle to that. And I wonder, Laurent, what do you see from the founders that you work with day in, day out? How are they reacting to this? Are they saying, well, now we need to sort of start hosting our own models, or we need to sort of look for alternatives or work with like gateways so we can actually work with multiple model providers around the globe? What's sort of the practical implication for founders that you work with here?
So the best of them already use different models for different things anyway. So for them, it's, I wouldn't say relatively easy, but it's not that difficult to read to switch to Codex, for example, if Claude Mythos is not available or Fable 5 is not available, to switch to Codex or to go for an open source like Minimax or Kimi. And we also do that internally, right? Because one thing is the latest model available, but we've had for the last 6 months issues that Claude is down, right? I mean, I can tell you a dozen instances where my team was telling me, yeah, I can't work because Claude is down. And today we just work with the models. So if the models don't work, you cannot do anything. So we had to start very early on looking into using different models for different purposes, but also having them as a fallback if one of them was not doing what it was supposed to, or when the next version of a model came out, maybe it was the output was not exactly what it used to be. So you need to have a fallback solution. And I think that will become just normal best practices in software development, to have a fallback solution, a fallback LLM, an older version, a different version. Also cost-wise, I see that happening quite a lot now, that we also did the same. We built a couple of solutions first on, I think it was Claude, but I'm not sure anymore whether it was Codex or Claude. And the token cost just got so expensive that at some point we switched to, I think, Kimi and Minimax, and it drove the costs down 6 to 7 times, right? So I think this is going to happen all across the board. You will need the frontier model for some stuff, but there's a lot of things you can do without the frontier models, or using alternatives. But I think anyone that is really serious about building software in this AI age will anyway have to rely on more than one model. Otherwise, they cannot work.
I mean, this is a really good strategy, but overall, it still worries you, I
fully
assume,
agree.
right?
Yeah, fully agree. I mean, the fact is we have now the option to choose between two countries, right? We can choose the American models that are
Chinese.
usually not open source and more costly, or the Chinese open source ones. And both of those options as Europeans cannot be a good option at the end of the day. I mean, to fulfill the purpose, yes, but from a security and strategic standpoint, I fully agree. It's worrisome, but so far, I mean, there's only one company in the whole of Europe that has a model that is somehow able to work with this, Mistral AI. So we definitely need to invest a lot more in Europe, and I hope this is a wake-up call, but I'm not so sure it will be. Let's see.
What also shocked me was the data on how much compute is produced, which is 80% of the global compute is American. Europe is 5%, right?
That's insane.
So, and that it is scary. So, like, how can we make sure we're a partner for this, right? And building on eye level, right?
Right.
At the same time, I think, let's say 6 months ago, I was saying it's too late. I think even on this podcast, I said it's too late. There's nothing we can do about this LLM wars anymore, whatever you want to call it. But then when you hear stories like OpenAI now just built with a partner together their own GPUs that are much more efficient than anything else, and they built it in 9 months, I'm thinking, okay, it's still possible, right? Like, we can also catch up. Yes, it will need a lot of investment, and some people need to wake up and start putting the money where their mouth is. But I think if we do that, there's still a good chance that Europe can catch up we will probably not be the winner in this market in the next 5 years, but if we can at least catch up and be sovereign to a certain extent, I'm quite sure this is actually possible.
And it needs everything, right? It needs also the compute below. It needs the energy below. It's the entire thing, right? The entire infrastructure that we desperately need. Then you can only build on top, right?
Yeah,
And
agree.
everything is missing at this point, right? So, and I think that's what Marcel Salaté and Judith Dada and all these people are, screaming, right?
And it's interesting because there's one perspective there, like, okay, you can get locked out of the model by US export restrictions in that case. But there's also a second, maybe a more provocative take, which is we sort of locked ourselves out, to say the least, where you say, hey, we cut from inside through EU regulations in that sense. There was also one sort of example that Marcel gave on LinkedIn. He said, there's a Sakana Fugu, a company that ships frontier model orchestration. And then they just geofence it around the EU and just the economic zone of Europe, because they say, well, all the regulations, the GDPR, etc., this is just something we don't want to be dealing with, the new EU AI Act. So we're just not going to offer our product in Europe. So Salate was then sort of half joking, saying, hey, can I have a checkbox, please, that treat me as if I were outside Europe? But it's sort of a challenge that you then not even get export restrictions from the government, but the companies just don't want to do business anymore in your geographical area because the regulations are so unfriendly. Is that a bit an exaggeration, or is that sort of another problem that we need to cut through? Because if we're starting from that angle, everything we can invest and do and build might not even matter if we don't get the regulations and the basics right.
I mean, this is not new, right? We implement a lot of Microsoft ERP, so Microsoft Business Central, and Microsoft Business Central, whenever they do an update, the US gets it approximately 12 months before Europe, because they first need to comply with all the GDPR rules, with the EU AI Act rules and everything. That just takes a lot of time. So even if our customers are cutting edge and at the front of everything, they're still 1 year behind. And I think what's going to happen over time is just more of the same. Talent will go to where they have the freedom to operate. And if that's not in the EU, because you don't have the frontier models, you don't have the rule set that allows you to test out these things, we're going to be at a severe disadvantage also in 5 to 10 years. So yeah, there needs to be some revision of what's happening with this overregulation in Europe. I mean, everyone has been going on about this for a couple of years. I don't see anything has changed yet, but at some point we need to change that. Otherwise, we will be the mountain we have to climb is just higher for no apparent reason. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Or there's no mountain at all to climb,
But I mean, if you blow into that horn, it's basically what you said, like, I don't know, 6 weeks or 6 months ago, however early or late that was when you made that statement, that it was basically, well, we're never going to be able to catch up, because if you don't fix that regulatory part, the good talent is leaving to the US or to China. They're going to build the stuff there because it's easier to execute fast. And we will even have less talent and less of a chance to eventually catch up at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's two scenarios here, right? One, and you can see both of them happening already a little bit. One scenario is people moving to countries outside EU, let's say Dubai, for example, where they have none of those rules, and it's easier for them. Maybe they're also, tax-wise, there's a reason why they go there, obviously. But there's a certain climate there that allows them to do that. And yeah, I mean, now with the war in the Middle East happening, sure, that's cooled it off a little bit, but that's been in the areas that I'm present, the people that I talk to, I've seen quite a few people move over there that I thought probably never move away from here. That's the first level. And then the second level is exactly what we've been discussing now, is if in America or in China, you will always have access to those best models and they're shaping the future. Sure, if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, you will move there. So we have to do that. We have to really do the groundwork and change the rule set in Europe. And I'm not saying disregard all data privacy and go back to the Wild West. I'm not saying that, but some common sense, some middle ground that allows us to play on the same field and gives us a fair chance of catching up. Because 6 months ago I thought it's not possible. Now I'm fairly convinced with the right rule set, it is possible to catch up. Probably not to be the winner in this, but enough, catching up enough that we can actually be sovereign in this area.
And now this will get like very political, but since Switzerland is not officially part of the EU, of course we're surrounded and we do a lot of deals with the European Union. What should sort of the Swiss strategy be? Like, should we sort of try to stay outside of the EU and sort of say, hey, treat us as if we were outside the EU so we don't have to deal with all that regulation, and you can even give us access and we turn that into a strength? Or would that be the wrong strategy because it will backfire and will actually hurt us more in the long term than the short term gain? What do you see about that specific move or strategy that Switzerland can take, Sophie?
I wonder if that's even an option, right? With our size, to say,
Yeah, fair.
right? I think Switzerland could play an interesting role and maybe position itself as, the always being this like safe place where we care about privacy, where we have secure data in bunkers for very specific use cases like security, like health data, but then also show signal and openness towards innovation and collaboration with, the big economical players, the big tech players. So I think we should do anything we can to be able to collaborate across with everyone. Yes, I agree. I think we should be running our own strategy there and not wait until Europe wakes up. Yes.
I think even if we do, I'm not sure whether the big players will actually treat us differently. Again, now this is not, I'm not 100% sure about this. I would have to double check, but a lot of the rule sets that apply in the EU don't necessarily apply to the same degree in Switzerland. But for the American companies like Microsoft, it's just too cumbersome to go and figure out whether this applies or not. And they just put us into the same EU rule set basket. So even if we take a different stance, we still have some convincing to do to make sure that those companies actually know that this little tiny 8 to 10 million people island in the middle of Europe is actually worth being treated differently to other countries.
And I think that's the point, worth being treated. So if we own something extremely important in the entire stack that they like, right? I think that's what it is about, having a certain, being part of an important part of the stack, owning one of the bottlenecks, having extreme talent, having companies that are relevant, and then we can also participate, right? Because that's what it is. You're just getting excluded because you're not relevant, right? So we have to be relevant, and then we will participate because they need something we have, right? And I think that's the mode we need to build as a country. And I'm sorry I'm talking like that. I'm a huge fan of the European Union as an idea and as a model, and I think we have to strengthen the European Union because otherwise there is no chance with all the geopolitical things that are happening right now. But we also have to make sure that Swiss-grown companies can grow and that we don't lose access.
Of course.
Yeah.
So what could that moat be? What could that precious thing that we can offer to the Chinese, to the US, companies, governments, whatever, what could that be despite probably talent that we have? But talent is mobile, so they just might move there anyways if the hurdles are too high in Switzerland. We have great tech companies, but we also like to sell them pretty early instead of trying to build a global giant. So what is it that we can actually offer them?
What do you say, Laurent?
I mean, if we're now specifically speaking about, let's say, the AI part or the software AI part of the future, yeah, it starts still with the talent. We have very, very good education systems here. There's good companies coming out of that. I think there's also some really great foundational companies in terms of, cooling of GPUs, creating new clusters and this sort of stuff that is happening now that is really at the basic level of this, where the LLMs are being built on top. I don't think we will be able to compete on the level of the LLMs. Maybe on specialized LLMs, yes, but not on the general ones that, they're IPOing now at valuations that's just incredible. So I don't think on that layer we have any chance. On the application level on top, sure, but that's probably not going to be a moat in any sense. So I think we should look at the levels below, like what really makes sure that you can power them more efficiently, more cheaply, faster, more securely. And I see a couple of companies, or I've seen a couple of techs in the last couple of weeks. I don't remember the names, to be honest, but there's a couple of really good ones here in Switzerland that are actually working on this, like making sure that we have a faster transmission, an easier or a better GPU setup, less heat generated and stuff like that, which is going to be massively important if it keeps growing at these rates. So if we can get in there, like the hardware layer, that could be one way. I don't think we will be the production company for the world. That's not going to happen. But if we can be innovative enough to actually have a say in that, that could be one direction for sure. So I think everything that actually feeds into the LLMs, not everything that is built on the LLMs, but everything that feeds into the LLMs, that's where we should really focus on, because that's where Switzerland is already quite strong.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Anything that's infrastructure, anything that's the hardware below energy, that's the energy that feeds into it. And I think there we also have a history, right, as a country of like high precision and deep tech that now could come into play. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your perspectives here. So I want to move on to the next topic. We got some first half year figures for the Swiss startup investments. I know there's still a few days left, so take them with a grain of salt. Maybe some big rounds are still happening as we speak. Nevertheless, overall, what we see, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So overall, the investments are down about 15%, but it's sort of the seed that took the hit, while the big rounds, they are doing just fine. So they're still happening. Sophie, how do you interpret these numbers? Is it a flight to quality to say, okay, I want to double down on what's already working and just build a stronger set of winners? Or are we running into the problem and are starving the next generation of entrepreneurs here by giving them less money? Or maybe they just need less money. I don't know.
I mean, I think this whole concentration just like happens across everything, right? Like certain rounds are being piled up and everyone else gets nothing, right? And this extreme environment is I see it everywhere. And I think investors, at least in my circles, I feel are even more cautious. Like either it's like, oh, it's a hot thing, you jump on it. Oh, it's not very hot, then I probably don't do it, right? Because you're getting so nervous because things are moving so fast. So nobody wants to take a wrong bet. So I think it comes also from that, honestly. There's either FOMO or you don't do it. And so, yeah, not a great environment. I hope, investors, we're a climate investor, like, so we look at things that are not hot right now. I mean, certain things are hot, like what we just discussed, like, yeah, how can we make data centers more efficient, how can we make AI more efficient? But we're looking at food and agriculture deals that were super hyped a few years ago, and currently there's no one going in the space, right? And these are, in a way, the investments you should do, right? Anything that is overlooked and undervalued, right? So yeah, we'll see. We'll see where this goes, but it's definitely, it just keeps getting more extreme across. Yeah.
I mean, I cannot say for the pharma and the biotech industry, for example, but I speak a lot with investors in the ICT sector, and publicly they're not saying that the same way. But if I talk to them behind closed doors, they're telling me, I don't even know where I should invest right now, because anything I invest could be completely irrelevant in 6 months. And then they ask me, Laurent, where are you investing right now? And my answer is nowhere, because I have no clue what's happening. Like the last 12 months, I've also not made a single investment, because I honestly also, I'm still in this phase of trying to figure out and wrap my head around what is going to be the winner category, or the winner cases within a category that are touched by AI. And I think a lot of the investors are just about as clueless about it as I am, even though I'm very deep into this material all the time. So I think that drives, okay, we need to invest somewhere. We don't really know where. So let's go for the safe bets, the bigger companies that are already more established. If your vehicle, the purpose of your VC fund or whatever it is, actually allows you to do that. Because if you're only doing early stage, you have to keep doing early stage. But that's what a lot of them have been telling me the last 2-3 months is, I actually don't know where to invest.
So the more uncertain you are, the more you need other signals, right? So that's what it is.
Yeah. And remember, like if you looked at the numbers last year, I think that biotech was like the driving force to survive the past downturn years, I would say. And then I think ICT and others came back. Now we actually have some nice signals from the biotech sector. We have, I think, at the end of May, Eli Lilly actually acquired Lima Tech Biologics for up to almost 800 million US dollars. And the other thing is like Sophia Genetics, they were already public from a while ago, but they basically placed another public offering of around 57 million US dollars, which got oversubscribed at NASDAQ. So it sort of seems that there is still some good stuff happening with at least Swiss IP, even if some of them might not be legally Swiss companies anymore, but they originally started out in Switzerland. So it sort of seems that there's still, at least in some sectors, investor appetite to continue investing and pouring more money into beyond pure AI plays.
And these are also AI/genetics, AI health
Yeah.
companies, right?
Or at least
So there is
rebranded
the
to it, to be
overlap.
fair, Yeah. Is that just the thing that you see at the moment, that to go public, to have a big investment rounds, you need to have AI, whether it's credible or invented or not, somewhere, and investors will buy it, and everything else is just not really being looked at, Sophie?
Yeah, I mean, that's been going on for a couple years already, right? Absolutely. Yeah. But
And that's
on another perspective is like there's very few companies that we look at that have no AI component, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's like if it's actually a material, right? And you completely but everything else has always it's part of the infrastructure now. So yes, everybody can rebrand themselves as an AI fund. I had a coach saying we should do an AI climate fund. I was like, no, I mean, there is AI in every company we invest in. I don't want to, yeah, I don't want, we had the conversation, like, yeah, would that make sense? Would we maybe raise more money as well as a fund, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But then
definitely.
you also
AI
have
will
to
be
look
in
at the
everything.
returns,
Exactly. So it will become, it won't have any meaning in a
Yeah.
couple of years, right? So, yeah.
Soon AI is everywhere, so it doesn't
Yeah,
matter if you
exactly.
want to become an AI fund, because that just means you will invest into everything except for 2% of companies that don't have AI.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So, yeah.
And Sophie, you mentioned before when we were talking about the restricted access to the Anthropic models, that Switzerland has a good brand reputation for safety and also privacy, and just like, hey, this is a good place to store my data in a bunker. And there's a political topic that might be interesting in that context. The Federal Council is currently discussing stricter rules on where sensitive health data can sit. So it sort of ties back to the kickoff. It's not only where the data lives, but where the models it depends on stay reachable. A very important context in that situation. And now looking at the European example, taking Switzerland and also thinking about the Chinese and the US models that are probably used in some form or function to make use of health data. How do you see that, this discussion? Is that something that, oh, this is cool, this can actually create a moat for us, for Switzerland, to bring us in a unique position? Or is it possibly a cage where we regulate something to the point that businesses or people don't want to run operations or business with Switzerland anymore because it's just too regulated and not worth the effort? So how do you read that discussion? And if you were able to steer it, in which direction would you push it?
Yeah, I would want to push it that we guarantee to have both, right? Really secure privacy for health data. Genetics data is extremely important that there is control, uh, but then also make sure that there is a good system in place to give access to it, to the right players, to the right organizations in the right way, right? So we can participate in collaboration and innovation and build learnings on top of it. But still control the access. So I think I think Switzerland would have the possibility to actually play that very, very smart and say like, hey, we are a very good safe place for data, and we are smart about who has access and how, and we figure out both. We figure out both, right? The innovation stream as well as the security part. And yeah, that's the challenge of today, I feel. How do you do that?
The difficult part here is, if it's about health data, that only matters for the 8 to 10 million people that you have in Switzerland, right? It doesn't matter we can store health data from companies out of the UK or whatever, but the UK laws on health data still apply. So we will not be able, unless I've missed something, but we will not be able to make this an export to the rest of the world that is really, valuable in that sense. It will just protect the people that live in this country, their data better. And yes, other companies that come here with their data, we can also protect that. But if you're taking data from the US economy or the US patients, you will have to comply with their regulations at the end anyway, right? So in the end, what we're doing is we're just protecting the 8 to 10 million people we have here, which is a very good thing. I agree with you, Sophie. And we should do it in a way that we can still use it. But we're not going to be able to export that into the world. It's not there. It won't create any upside potential for us.
And what do you think? What do you think around like data trading that is already happening? Right. I know for certain research that we're doing, even within companies, like could be a company like Roche that actually buys US data or rents US data to do experiments on it, to do simulations, to build new pharma and products on top of it. So a lot of companies start having to need access from other data sets that are moving around and being stored in different places. So how do you see that? I think there we might, like, you want to be a player where it's like, okay, Switzerland is a safe place, it is secure, we can be trusted as a data owner and their data user, but still open to
as a
the
user, I
trading and the
agree. So
collaboration.
probably you're probably fully right that if a Swiss company asks another country to have access to their data because we're trusted, we probably get easier access to that. I think that can actually be true, and we will need that. I'm not 100% sure about the details, but my sister is a doctor, and I speak to her and a couple of her friends, and they told me, look, if you want to make a relevant study on anything, you cannot do it within Switzerland. You can be based in Switzerland, but the data you're getting is going to be from UK, from the US, and from other markets, because it's virtually impossible to get enough data out of Europe simply because of the data privacy that we have, and the way that the data is being treated, and the way that you need to get people to buy into that study. So, I mean, we're just going to make this even harder, right? So yes, I agree. We will probably need data from other places, and it's probably going to help our reputation as a trustworthy partner to get that data. So there, I think you're right. But as a country with only 10 million people and already quite strict rules, we are not going to be benefiting from using our own data in any better sort of way through that.
Yeah. No, it's exactly that. I know for my brother who works at Roche, they renting data sets from the US, and we're talking about renting. So he's in cancer research, for example, very specific genetics within cancer. And so there's, I don't know, a data set of a few thousand patients that they can access. And they're renting this for $20 million for 2 years just to be able to have access to the data, play with it, build on top of it, try things out, and then give it back, right? So there's a whole economy that's starting with like lending data sets, exchanging data sets, sharing data sets. So I think, yeah, I don't know. I feel like Switzerland could, like a little bit what we used to do in finance, like a trusted player that is a trusted bank. Maybe we could become something like that on the data side as well. For exactly these like high value cases, right? This is not like normal kind of data. This is like highly specific, very personalized genetic data of a few individuals, right? That is highly valuable when you want to develop the next cancer treatment, for example. So I'm talking about this kind of data.
I was wondering if you continue that thought process, right? And we were talking before about what can Switzerland offer that sort of serves for us as a country as a moat. Shouldn't we also think about investing, I don't know how many billions, if 1 billion would be enough, maybe we'll need more to make that happen, to build our own LLM to a certain degree that we can then run these analyses with the data that we get from outside, because Switzerland is just too small to have its own data, but having our own proprietary model, well trained, but really at scale, not like what happened with Apertus, which was more of a research project, but never really scaled to practical usability the way that an Anthropic or OpenAI have done it. So my question is a bit like, shouldn't we also think about that to have a bit of more of a bold move to really build some defendability into our system and country, that we can then be the ones that say, nope, only Swiss can use that and build trust around that angle from a privacy and data security angle, where people say, I don't want to use American or Chinese models, but if there's a Swiss model, I would be very open to that.
Most of the customers I speak to that are not early stage startups, they request that all the time. They're like, okay, I mean, which LLM can we use for this? And then I'm telling them OpenAI Codex, Claude Code, Minimax, Kimi. Then they ask where the models are for, from US, China. They're like, no, we need a European alternative. I'm like, yeah, I mean, we can look at Mistral, but it doesn't work in this case, so there's nothing. So there's a huge market asking for this, and a lot of use cases that you could fill with it. So I'm sure there's like the market is there. The question is, can we get the investment? Can we get the talent to actually build this? Because Apertus was the first small try, and I think they did a good job. But yeah, it didn't really get out of the launching pad at all. So you cannot use it today. If customers come and ask me, can we use Apertus? I showed them the results and some tests we did. It just doesn't add up. And we need to invest a lot more if we want to play there. And you cannot do that through a government. And it has to be a private company, of some form. And I just don't see the case at the moment. I'm not saying it will not be there, because I think we can catch up. But right now, I don't see it happening, and I think it should.
Because we would have the talent, right? We would have the talent to make it work, but you need a significant investment to be able to purchase the computing power, the energy, and all of that to be able to build and train such a model. So that's probably the missing piece that we cannot scramble together.
Yeah. I mean, also, sorry, Sophie, also from the side of, the discussion was always around you need billions to be able to make this work. But what you can see now is that the really good models, they're actually running profitably, because they figured out how to optimize it, and the usage is going up so strongly that, I mean, OpenAI not yet. Obviously, they're still far away from it, but also I think they will get there at some point. So I think the investment side is not as huge anymore as it used to be. To get to a certain point, we will not be a frontier model anytime soon without huge, amazing investments, which I don't think will happen. But if we can just, be there 6 months behind the frontier models, but have a sovereign solution here in Europe, that would be good enough for most of the use cases out there. That would be good enough. And I think that's absolutely achievable.
Sophie, you wanted to add something before? Sorry, we cut you off.
No. I mean, I agree with everything that Laurent's saying, and I just wanted to go back to what we said earlier. I think more important is that we own something in the infrastructure layer below to make sure that we keep having access to the frontier models. Even if we have, let's say, a second tier model in Europe, you still want to have access to it, right? So we still need to make sure that we own something in the stack that will guarantee us this access. Yeah.
We have some more thinking to do until we meet next time to come up with more solutions on what we can actually offer or occupy to stay relevant in that negotiation, on that negotiation table, basically.
And space for data centers and compute we would have, right? There are all these bunkers in the Gotthard, right?
Yeah.
And some people started talking about it and started,
it's also quite cold down there. So
So we have it really over and over when we meet once a month. It sounds that we have all the ingredients to really make big stuff happening, and we do on many fronts. Many great technological breakthroughs and companies are built and coming out of Switzerland, but it sort of still feels that we are not living up to the full potential and capturing that potential well enough, based on the ingredients we would be, or actually even should be, capable of. That's sort of how I would probably summarize our discussions over the past 6 months. Yeah.
Maybe not wrong.
But it makes you thoughtful, no? It's like, look, you have everything sort of on the silver tablet, and we do a lot of great stuff. Don't get me wrong. It's really cool, all the ETH spin-offs and everything that we see. But at the same time, I also feel like there's so much more that we could be doing, that we are also sometimes maybe content, or we don't think big enough, or whatever it is. But I do feel, based on everything we have, there should be even more possible.
I mean, we should just scale what all the potential we have. I think that's where the problem lies, right? We don't have an innovation problem, we don't have a resources problem, we have a scale up problem, right? And that's what it is. And it's like yeah. I mean, we're not even those big biotech acquisitions, right? They're great, but we're not building the next Roche. We could,
Right.
right? We have done that before. Yeah, so yeah, we're always ending with the same kind of conclusion, right? I mean, we just need less regulation, like we talked before, and we lots more capital that things really can grow. I mean, it's yeah, we just can't keep up if we don't have the same, you know, fuel going into the system
Of
than
course.
others. So
Yeah, I
and
think
we would have the money too, right? I mean, that's the other thing. It just doesn't flow in the right direction. We have it sitting in our pension funds, we have it sitting in our saving accounts, we have it sitting in, I don't know, foundation capital, governments. I mean, the Swiss government doesn't even have a fund, right? So, and we're maybe the last country without a fund of fund that actually invests in its own companies. So it's like, yeah, everything is here. Yeah, I don't know.
less
I don't know how
regulation.
much more has to happen that we actually do have a wake up call, you know?
That's probably the
Less,
Yeah.
dangerous
as
part, right? Because it sort of happens very slowly. You don't realize, like, the frog in the boiling water, and the temperature gets hotter and hotter, and you don't really feel it until you're dead. And you mentioned Roche, or also all the other great companies, like Swiss Re, like many companies, Credit Suisse back in the days, that were funded and founded by Swiss entrepreneurs. But I don't know, we haven't really been able to put out more of those, and we basically live off the wealth and the high standard of living that those companies and those
Generated.
generations created. And if we want to continue on that path, we need to create more of those companies that are big, that can scale, and that actually generate a sort of a bigger pot for everyone involved in the country. And if we are not able to do that, we will not be able to continue living with the same standard of life as we are used to by now.
That's true. But I also think that, pressure creates diamonds. And I think it will happen again here. So if I speak to people in Germany the last couple of months, when I spoke to investors and business owners over there, everybody's been trashing, including us, been trashing the economy of Germany the last couple of years, and how their industry is going to be left behind. Now, if I talk to people, they're quite bullish on on the German industry, the German factories, saying yes, a lot of them are going through a hard transformation, but you can't just evaporate all the knowledge that is there. They have to adapt. They have to, be more competitive. They're really those frogs are boiling, but I think they will find a way to jump out of it, most of them, and leap back into something that is meaningful. And I think the same thing will happen with Switzerland, to be a bit more optimistic. As you said, we have a lot of the things in place, and maybe we just need still a bit more pressure, a bit more unease, a bit more uncertainty for us to really grab onto it and start pushing on it. I think there's a lot of people that are already doing it, but yeah, it might just be that the time is not quite right yet. We should keep pushing. We should try everything we can, and I'm quite sure at some point it will turn around and we will become relevant again. Not the number one economy in the world. That's not going to happen, most probably, but I think we will find our stride again at some point.
But I just got to Zurich, but so you're much closer to what people think and what people are worried here about, like the whole entropic cutoff. Like, did that create like true panic across people, or was this just a little news or
Not at all.
uh,
So
okay,
that's
not at
why I
all.
say
Okay.
it's not a wake up call, right? People are just saying, "Oh shit, news model doesn't work." That's it. It's not like our
Mm-hmm.
competitors in the US, they have still access because Claude also stopped it there, right? So they didn't. I think it
Mm-hmm.
the move from Claude, it's from Anthropic itself to say, look, then we're shutting it down everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and we're
Mm-hmm.
not keeping it open in the US. Actually, covered over that wake up call a little bit, because if you are a startup, you don't really think too much about, whether the sovereignty of your country or someone else's country is better or at risk or whatever. You're thinking about, am I at a disadvantage to my direct competitors? And you're
Sure.
not, because it was also shut down for those guys, right? I think if that didn't happen, it would be a bit of a different story. But because it was shut down for everybody, yeah, who cares? Okay,
So if
let's
it's
go back.
turned on again for the US and then we start seeing the difference, then maybe. Yeah.
That will make a difference for some people. Yeah.
And I would also say that was this case. Who knows about the future cases, Let's say that OpenAI makes a deal with the US department or the government or whatsoever and keeps it open and shuts it down everywhere else, or just ships it later, with your Microsoft example, 1 year later to Europe and Switzerland. That would be
You
a
are at a
different
huge
story,
disadvantage. It's a huge disadvantage. And I think, Salate is absolutely right. We need to wake up about this and we need to do something about it. Not everyone has that realization yet, but I think a lot of people know. And now the next step is figuring out what it is that we need to, or what we can actually do to get there. Because, the investor Michael Jackson, he used to always say any pitch deck that has EU sovereignty on it or something like that is just not capable of competing globally, right? That's sort of the stance that a lot of investors still take on this sovereignty topic. But I think that will change if we see a bit more of those news, like the Fable 5. I think that opinion will change quite quickly.
Mm-hmm. So let's look a bit ahead. So we will take a little summer break, very European in that sense. So we'll be back here probably by mid-September to discuss everything that happened in summer. And I'm sure there will be plenty to talk about. Laurent, one prediction you have to make for after the summer break can be something that you're excited about, that you think will happen, something that you hope it will not happen, whatever it is. What's your prediction for when we meet next time?
I seriously hope we don't see something like this Fable 5 situation again until then. Because if this ball gets rolling, I'm not sure we can stop it.
No. Sophie, what's your prediction? Or hope? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's from our perspective too, right? All the IPOs that are happening now, the one with SpaceX already happened, the Anthropic coming up, OpenAI, we'll see, others hopefully stacking up to it. I hope this is creating, not just wealth that is very extremely concentrated, but also wealth that then gets again redistributed. And I'm thinking of people working in these companies becoming active angels, reinvesting. I'm thinking of funds that have invested in these companies, that having capital returning back to investors, going back. So there has been a pretty stuck still liquidity window until this point, right? And so I hope this brings everything back and lots of new funds are going to be created, lots of more capital will flow, and I hope it also comes over to Europe, right? Because a lot of it will be concentrated in the US. So this reshift, I think, will be healthy to maybe end that period of this. What did you call it? Makes diamonds the harder it gets. So we had a little bit of that also in venture capital in general, right? So very, very dry, very, very hard, and it's extreme concentration with like AI now. So hopefully this is going to become a release and kind of spread things more out again. Because there's so many cool things that are being developed across the globe that are extremely important, that we need desperately, that currently have harder time to get funded, right?
And I like one point you mentioned about the access to these IPOs. I also like that SpaceX, I think they did that. They also actually invite and let participate quite a few retail investors through apps like Robinhood, etc. From what I read, I think that's pretty cool that you can sort of participate in an IPO at the sort of the regular price before with the first listing. That was kind of cool.
They need every dollar they can get, right, to get to these valuations.
Of course, but at the same time, that's also sort of a good thing, I think, to have more people participate than just a few, hopefully.
Yeah, and I'm mostly excited also about people working in these companies, right? Who are very technical or very a bit operational skills, who know like what it takes to build these kind of companies, them having this wealth now that they can put into the next generation of startups and funds. I think those I think I'm excited about mostly.
Absolutely.
These are new
So-
investors, right? That haven't invested as of now.
Right.
And these are the kind of investors everyone wants, right?
Yeah.
The ones that know how to build companies.
Who walk the talk.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah.
So we have plenty to think about, to marinate about over summer before we'll be back here in September. Sophie, Laurent, thank you again for being here today. Always a pleasure. I wish you a wonderful summer, and we'll be back here in September, all three together. Thank you so much.
Thank
Likewise,
you both.
enjoy. Bye-bye.